Is Declan in the room from TikTok? Here he is here. Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present now, as I said, what we try and do every year with the conferences is sort of change it up and have people that have never spoken. One of the social media platforms that is certainly making a difference is one called TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but I can tell you now a lot of travellers are, and they're going to that for inspiration as well. I'd like to introduce you to our keynote today, Declan Malone, the client partner from TikTok, and how TikTok is shaping the future of travel. Please welcome Declan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and pleasure to be here. And I think it's one of the main things I've heard today is I don't have TikTok, but I know that it's an amazing opportunity, and hopefully the session that we will go through over the next 25 minutes will help give you a little bit more of an understanding into why TikTok is shaping the future of travel. As mentioned, my name is Declan. I'm a client partner at TikTok. I've already been called Mr. TikTok today, and I wish I was. I wish I had the bank balance of Mr. TikTok, but I do not. But I'm a passionate travel industry expert. So before my days at TikTok, I spent most of my career working across the travel industry. I spent 5 years at Tourism New Zealand and also working at many other hotel brands. So deeply passionate about the travel industry, and then now very excited about connecting the travel industry to this amazing and exciting new technology in TikTok. So what I'm going to get you guys to do right now, I was told this is a workshop, so I'm going to make you work. And the first task I'd like to do is if everyone just takes out their phones. And how many people here needed to travel from interstate or into Sydney and needed accommodation tonight? Yeah, so quite a few. So many of you might have had to search best hotels in Sydney. So just do that exercise now. What app would you use or what experience would you take to answer that question, best hotels in Sydney? So I'll just give you a couple of seconds. Or, yeah, there you go. That's 1 point. Google, exactly. So how many of you have a response that looks something similar like the one on the left-hand side there? Yeah, show of hands in the room. Yeah, so we're all showing our age. So most people, of course, will respond to using an app like Google to look at search. However, what we're seeing from Gen Z and also moving into millennials is that video-based responses are becoming the preference. So I'll share this video, which was the top search response when I searched for best hotels in Sydney on TikTok.
Was on fire, no one could save me but you. Strange what desire.
What are some of the key differences? Video. Exactly, yeah, video. Immersive, sound on, fully immersive experience. Now also just to explain that when I search top hotels in Sydney, I'm delivered with a whole feed of different video responses, and you also get to select. This was the one actually from the Destination New South Wales account, which has a feature, of course, for the Pier 1 Hotel. Beautiful, stunning, and then that really engages and captivates that immersive response to that search query. So what we're seeing in that behavioral change, particularly of Gen Zs and millennials, is that search behaviors have evolved. No longer are Gen Z and millennials using Yahoo or Google in this instinct. They are showing to prefer researching products on video and social-led media platforms. Why? Because it's easier, it's more effective, and you're also more likely to watch a video response than to read through a long blog or search through multiple research options on Google. So hopefully what I'll take you through in the short 25 minutes that I have is essentially how this is driving behavior on TikTok, but also shaping the way in which travelers are responding to TikTok. So travel itineraries are now built on TikTok, and to millions of Australians that are now on the platform every single day, travel content on TikTok is the new itinerary. So our platform is where audiences are coming to discover, but they're also coming to act and to make bookings. Before I dive into the travel section, I did want to spend a little bit of time of answering the big question of the day. Very important, what is TikTok? We've all heard about it, and I'm sure many of our kids are using it, but what is it really and what do we set out to achieve? So quick show of hands, and we can all be honest here, who has TikTok on their phone? Okay, great. Who has posted a TikTok video? Great. And who has actually ran a campaign on TikTok for their marketing efforts? A few. Okay. Well, you guys can leave. You don't need to. You're experts on the platform. Now, I think the point that we want to make as well is now that TikTok is maturing and we have gone through, exponential growth over the last 4 years, we're trying to also help bust some myths in the market around how the platform has evolved. So many of you might be familiar with some of these myths about the platform. Who's heard it's, only for young people, or it's not really somewhere where people pay attention, they just doom scroll and watch silly videos. Or the one I think that's hung around and stuck around the longest is that that's just silly dance videos for teenagers. Sure, we're quite familiar with some of these statements, yes. And again, we don't shy away from these. TikTok started out, at least in Australia, during the pandemic, and it was the Gen Z population and teenagers who really established the platform and really built that community. Now, 4 or 5 years later, the audience is diversifying and the content that is on the platform is diversifying, that we are more than just an app for teenagers. So first and foremost, just to answer that question, what is TikTok? It's the world's favorite community entertainment platform. That word entertainment is incredibly important to defining what our proposition is. It's where billions of people worldwide and millions of Australians come every day to watch, engage, and also share authentic content on their For You page. So that's another piece that's important, is that the For You page is your personal experience. When you open up the TikTok app, no two For You pages are the same. It is a personalized experience with content that is curated for you based on your interests. And that's the other point of difference as well for TikTok, is that it's based on what's called an interest algorithm rather than a social algorithm. So like other social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram, your content's mostly curated based on who you're following. So your friends, brands, or other creators, you'll generally get served content based on who you're following. With TikTok, it's based on your interest behaviors. So you don't necessarily need to follow anybody, but you can be inspired by cooking content or travel content because you're interested in that particular piece. For example, for me, as I mentioned, I'm a travel advocate and I'm traveling to Sicily in a couple of months. My For You page is curated purely based on European experiences and amazing hotels that I can start to explore, like that search option earlier on for my upcoming trip to Sicily. The other point as well is that TikTok is just for teenagers. We started out with a much younger audience, of course, and our heartland sits in that 18 to 34-year-old audience group. But the fastest growing audience segment sits in that 35 plus group. We now have a huge variety and range of backgrounds and groups and cultures that are now creating content as well as experiencing different content on platform. I've called out a couple of examples that you might find surprising, from grandfluencers to retirement homes who are getting engagement and huge following on the platform, rural Asian fashion. And then the other piece that's important too is that it's not all just entertaining only content. You can still share content that is of importance to the audience. So things like ability stories and neurodiversity. So it's not just about humor, which a lot of people often mistake the platform, that you can only show up in a humorous way. Even Joe Biden himself has a presence on the platform, and perhaps after today's news, he has more time to make TikToks. So let's keep an eye out on that. So I think the point that is really important here in terms of understanding the role of the platform is that it's not a social app as similar to the likes of Facebook or Instagram. Its primary role in people's lives is not social. When you go on social media, the likes of Facebook or Instagram or Snap or X, you check those platforms and everyone compares us to those. Whereas with TikTok, it's a platform where you watch. It's fully immersive, it's sound on, it's not a second screen, and you're engaged in that content and not watching a TV show in the background or also potentially reading a book. The other piece that's really important to share as well, and this aligns with the purpose of TikTok as a business, is about inspiring creativity and bringing joy. And that joy piece is really important into the mindset and emotion that we want our audience to feel. And we commissioned a piece of research with Nielsen recently that confirmed that people come to TikTok because it lifts their spirits more so than any other platform. And we know in the age of the internet at the moment that it can be often a scary place. It's nice to know that our audience come with more a positive intent mindset to feel and experience joy. So that research confirmed that TikTok is a place for discovering and sharing joy. And I think for hotels and travel brands, it's a joyous experience and it's a joyous opportunity. So how can we connect with that mindset on platform? 7 in 10 users visit TikTok when they want to feel joy, and 73% say they felt a lot happier after being on the platform. As I'd mentioned earlier as well, being an entertainment app, the audience are spending quite a bit of time on the platform engaging in content. More than 90 minutes, or what we like to say a movie's worth of content, where for a brand, you've got a captive audience and an opportunity to engage with them when they are in that mindset. And the other piece that we touched on earlier was about silly dance videos. That's our humble beginnings, but we've absolutely come a long way, and the diversity of content that's available on platform has now broadened. Of course, travel, which is something that's really important for everybody in the room today, is one of the fastest growing content categories on TikTok. That 5 billion, and that's billion with a B, is the number of video views for travel content alone in Australia in the last 3 years. And it also has a well above average benchmark of engagement. So the amount of people who are actually staying to watch that video is sitting at above industry at 9%. So travel has a home on the platform. TikTokers are obsessed about travel, and also brands should be understanding how they too can connect with that obsessed travel audience to make sure that their brand is top of mind and seeing results. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a flavor to answer some of those questions you might have had about TikTok. So it's just for silly dance videos. Well, actually, there's a range of content that suits everybody's needs. It's just for young people. Yes, our heartland is in 18 to 34, but 57% rather of our audience sit in that over 25 age bracket, and that is growing. And then also no one really pays attention on TikTok. Well, on average, they spend more than 90 minutes with TikTok each day. So kind of taking a step forward then into, what does that mean for travel? I touched on earlier that travel content, or what we call travel talk, is essentially one of the fastest growing content categories on the platform. But how is that shaping the future of travel, and what does that experience look like in terms of how the audience are engaging with the platform? I think taking a step back, one of the ways in which we look at this is in terms of the way in which travelers are consuming content has evolved. And this is particularly important for the travel industry. So if we rewind all the way back to even pre-internet days, which was the age of context, whenever Australians were looking to plan a trip, it was a one-way medium that they were looking to be inspired by, be it a television ad, or there was a magazine or a radio ad that was influenced by editors or publishers who were sharing content and ideas. That was the way in which we got our information to help plan a trip. Then moved into the age of knowledge. So the internet blew up and Google came on board, and everybody became their own expert in searching through the internet for solutions to help plan their trip. Then with the age of social, when Facebook and Instagram came on board, we started to get influenced by what our friends were posting and what our brands that we were following were posting. And now we move into what's called the age of content. So it's a culmination of all of that journey to essentially become a highly personalized, curated by both audiences, but also professionally created content that is highly personalized to the user. So in this instance, as I spoke about earlier, your TikTok For You page is your curated version of personalized recommendations that's based on your particular interests. The other piece then in terms of travel and why it allows great opportunity for travelers who are planning their next trip, and I heard the panel talk about this a little bit earlier about the rising cost of living and tightening the purse, is that the younger audience in particular, or the new generation, are feeling the pinch, but they are prioritizing travel. So the way in which that they are planning their travel has evolved. So we know the rising cost of living and expenses has potentially cause this audience to help find ways in which they are saving, but also prioritizing that money for their travel. So they want to make sure that they are getting value for their money and that the decisions that they make when they're planning their trip are worth it. And this has essentially introduced the narrative that we call the trip before the trip. So making sure that there is sound on, fully immersive experience, and that they are understanding the hotel in full detail before they part ways with their hard-earned cash to make that booking. TikTok has become that trip where people are deciding or nearly expect to experience the trip before they actually book the trip itself. So 3 in 5 users agree that TikTok inspired them to actually plan their travel. And the opportunity that this creates for travel brands and hoteliers alike is how do you help create that intent by inspiring users even before they think about traveling? There's 3 ways then in which that all comes together to drive impact. And it's unique to the TikTok experience and the community that's based on the platform is through content, community, and then also commerce. So from a content perspective, how are we ensuring that we are showing up on the For You pages of prospective travelers with the right type of content that meets their needs? Secondly is the role of creators. So creators are anyone who is on TikTok, who makes TikToks, is a creator. Now, many people might be their full-time job and they've got a lot of funding behind it and they post a lot of videos, or it could be myself who has a full-time job, but I share my experiences from my recent trip to Sicily. We're all creators, and brands can also understand how they can use trusted voices of creators to also play a role in helping that decision-making. And then finally is commerce. So we've spoken a lot today about joy and discovery and about brand, but ultimately, how is it that connecting through to business value and adding back value into your business, into the economy? And what we've seen is that TikTokers are making decisions based off of the content they are consuming and making bookings off the back of it as well, which is really important. You may have heard of the trend hashtag TikTok made me buy it, which is a real trend that has driven huge amounts of commerce here in Australia as well as the United States. And also in the US alone, we've set up what's called TikTok Shop, which is the future of where things might move in terms of transacting and converting on the platform. As I'd mentioned as well, we talk about the diversification of audiences. So too has that come through in terms of the type of trips and experiences that TikTokers are looking for on the platform. So essentially, there is a home for all travel brands on TikTok based on the interests of those audiences, from city breaks through to road tripping, through to food, nature, as well as culture. But the other thing that I think there's a great opportunity for brands is to understand key trends and how to better connect with travelers on those platforms in a more emotional way. So these are examples of some of the sort of what's hot right now for travelers in Australia. And I think what's quite exciting is there's quite a mix there of things that you can already jump on, from the role of generative AI. So it's a big hot topic in the industry right now. The great thing about generative AI is that it's already built into the TikTok algorithm. Essentially, your personalized For You feed is based on your interests. So you're more likely to have recommendations showing up on your page that is aligned with your travel intentions. Destination dupes. So I'm sure people are familiar with the White Lotus and what that has done for places like Sicily. So what audiences are looking for now is more affordable and more accessible ways that they can experience something similar. So they're looking and going to TikTok to see, where can I look for that hotel that was on the White Lotus that's closer to home or potentially is more suited to my budget. And then also experiential travel. We know post-COVID that transformational travel and experiences were prioritized. So how are we bringing through more types of experiences that are on offer in your hotels, and we're able to tell those stories? And then also city breaks, as well as sports and gig economy. So then, kind of culminating and closing that out, travelers are researching their next trip on TikTok. The way in which, as I'd mentioned earlier, that they are searching is evolving. And this is really important for that research and that planning phase, where it becomes their itinerary building search engine. And this then, as I'd mentioned, has led to a huge growth in travel searches on TikTok due to that visual search experiences. So more than 211 million searches on TikTok in the last 12 months. And we've had a 9 times growth in terms of the amount of searches coming through travel. So again, that's only the beginning, and it's a really exciting time to start to think about how you can look at the platform and the role that it might play for your business. I'd mentioned this earlier as well, and I just wanted to reiterate the point around the community of travelers, is that they are ready to advocate for your brand in an authentic way. So TikTokers are more likely to agree that videos on TikTok are more authentic compared to other brands, so 1.3 times more likely. So how are you able to look in and tap into some of those creators who might be able to tell stories for your business and help drive more bookings? So the sky is the limit for the new era of travel. So I think what's great, and what we spoke a little bit about earlier on is that we're starting to see recovery coming through the industry, which is amazing from where we were 4 years ago. How do we look through to the future and understand traveler behavior and plan for those behaviors so that we're future-proofed? I did want to touch on then specifically for the hotel industry, knowing that this is the vast majority, I'm assuming, of the audience, in terms of understanding their particular travel behavior when it comes to booking hotels. So the great thing about TikTok is that we talk about it in terms of the infinity loop. So being sure that we're present across that entire customer journey from dreaming about a trip. 1 in 2 travelers have discovered a new accommodation brand on TikTok. So that's 50% of the audience in Australia have discovered a new hotel brand when they're in that dreaming phase. We move along to planning, and 1 in 2 have researched a travel accommodation brand on TikTok. So again, highly engaged, leaned in, and they're researching where they want to book next. The other compelling stat there is that more than 40% of Australians will change their mind during that planning phase whenever they're on TikTok because they were inspired by something else. So how are we ensuring that we're present during that planning phase with the right message that is relevant for them? And then, as I'd mentioned earlier, it's not all just a brand job. Ultimately, it's about driving value and conversion. 1 in 4 made a booking with an accommodation brand after seeing a video on TikTok. And then the other piece that I think is hugely exciting for the industry is the role of advocacy and recommendation that ultimately helps build future business. And we spoke about that a little bit earlier in terms of travelers looking to experience the trip before the trip and seeing other travelers' experiences. 2 in 3 like to share their travel experience on TikTok. So that creates new content that promotes your brand. Granted, they've had a good experience at your hotel property that is shared out onto the platform that is available for other people to dream and inspire and then start to plan their trip. The other thing that's really exciting, and I know we did speak a little bit earlier about OTAs and the opportunity in the industry, what we are starting to see from TikTok in particular is that it's driving direct bookings and building loyalty within the TikTok community. So 54% of users prefer to book directly from the brand's website or app, and 81% of TikTokers say that accommodation, was on their mind for several days after they've seen a TikTok video. So it is driving direct commerce and direct traffic through to your website. So that's the first port of call, I would say, to think about when it comes to the relationship with bookings. The other thing that we have insights into are what's our important drivers that they're looking for when it comes to making those decisions. So these are just some examples of top factors. This is Australian data for choosing accommodation. Cleanliness is number 1. Location and accessibility is number 2, and then also trusted reviews and ratings. So I think back to my earlier point around trusted voices and creators, that really kind of speaks to that overall conversation around value and ensuring that the audience is getting bang for their buck and feels confident with the booking that they're making before they decide to purchase. So out of those who've made a booking after watching accommodation-related content on TikTok, a massive 90% took the time to research before eventually making the booking. So the key point there, and as I'd mentioned earlier, yes, it's an entertainment platform, but as the audience is highly engaged and immersed, they are spending that time in the platform to make important decisions about their trip and about their booking that they're about to make. So my last slide, and then I'll go into a couple of examples. I'm sure there's many different ranges of types of business in the room, and some of you might be at different stages of your journey with TikTok, but these are very broad, but just some kind of early ways in to think about what could I start to do as a brand to be a part of this exciting experience. And we look at it, I would say, first and foremost, is to think about what stage of the journey is most important for your business right now. So is it within that building awareness and being part of that dream phase, or is it that you've actually got an active audience already and you want to drive more bookings and drive more conversions? So strategically, that's a good place to start. But I really think for all brands, having some kind of presence across every stage of the booking journey is really important. So from a dreaming perspective, how are you driving FOMO? So FOMO is fear of missing out, for those of you who aren't aware, and essentially being part of that culture on the platform to make sure that your hotel brand is top of mind and is part of that joyous experience when they're thinking about their next trip. So you can work with creators, showcasing the aesthetics of your hotel or some of the stories about your hotel that you want to start to share to really capture that attention in the first couple of seconds. Planning, of course, which we know is incredibly important and is the make or break it in terms of winning or losing that customer. There's a huge opportunity to drive consideration for your hotel property. This could be done, as we saw from the earlier example from the search result from Sydney, is a beautiful walkthrough of your property with an amazing soundtrack, or you could even have some of your hotel staff or a creator also do that. So how are you driving that consideration for your property and also helping to answer some of those questions? And then in terms of booking, there's plenty of opportunities on platform to help drive conversion to capture that audience and convert them through. We've got things like catalog shopping ads that you can showcase various different properties around the country, or also various types of rooms that connect through to your website for direct booking. And then finally, experience and share. This is really at the heart of encouraging users to share their experiences on the platform that will help tell stories for future guests. So finally, I just wanted to leave you with just sort of two examples. One's of a really big brand from Hilton who's done something really interesting, and then another international travel brand about sort of some of the different ways in which hotel brands are showing up on TikTok to create impact. Is anyone familiar with the Hilton Stay for 10 campaign? Yeah. Amazing. So this was Hilton's launch onto the platform last year. So don't feel too disheartened. Hilton only came onto TikTok last year for a massive brand. So there's plenty of time, and there's never too late to start. So what Hilton wanted to do is essentially try to disrupt the internet, and they created a 10-minute long video. And the challenge is in the title, Stay for 10. So we've spoke a lot today about attention, about keeping people's attention, but ultimately they wanted to challenge themselves to hold the audience's attention for 10 long minutes, which they did. Of course, they brought in heavyweights like Paris Hilton to help do that. But essentially what it shows is that they broke convention, they thought outside the box, but finally they rewarded participation as well. And that saw huge success, 60 million views globally, and also direct impact, so 15% increase in website visitation. So really great. Oh, I'm just conscious of time, so I'll just go on to the last one. Again, you don't have to have Paris Hilton in your video to get those type of results. So again, you could have existing content that you're running across other platforms. All you need to do is just take a test and learn approach. So for Princess Resorts in the United States, they did what's called A/B testing, where they ran various different creatives on platform to help understand which is the best performing. And then they had a really focused approach to help focus on the most leaned in and valued and qualified audience to help drive conversions, specifically on TikTok. They saw 26 times return on ad spend, as well as 7.8% conversion rate. So always start with a test, but you don't necessarily have to go out and engage Paris Hilton to be able to do anything on TikTok. So two different examples in terms of different ways that you can show up on platform. So I'll leave you with three key takeaways from the session. First and foremost is that TikTok is a community-based entertainment platform where we've got an audience who are leaned in and they're looking to be inspired. Secondly, we spoke a lot about travel and the trip before the trip. The way in which traveler behavior on TikTok is changing, and that is influenced in the industry. So how do you make sure that you're present along the booking journey to help drive impact? And then finally, driving business outcomes. We're all here to be able to do great videos and share great work, but it means nothing unless we're driving business value and business impact. And we've got the right products in place to help drive conversion and ultimately room bookings for your hotel business. Hopefully you found this session insightful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. Is there any questions for Declan from the audience? Mara, up the back. Radinka, can we walk up the back? Thank you very much. I learned a lot.
Great.
I'm not a TikToker, but I'm going to download it. But interesting what you're saying, that TikTok drives direct bookings. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Love to see that. So we got a question down the back. Oh, here we got a question here first. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm interested in, obviously getting cut through. How do you actually put a campaign together and get it actually seen commercially? Do you, rather than just making content and sticking it out there, and how are actually you going to get TikTok audiences to your content?
Paid ad campaigns is the best way. in terms of
When you say paid, what's that look like commercially? Is it a view rate? How do you charge?
Yep. So you can. It depends on your business. You can do it directly. You can go online, go to TikTok Business for Business, and set up an ads account directly. I'm not sure how you might run campaigns on other channels, but there's a direct self-service approach where you can essentially go into TikTok Ads Manager, you can build your campaign, find your audiences, you can get inspired by different types of creative that other people are using. What I would say as well, and a question came up earlier, is there's a lot of people in the room who've not been on TikTok. Spend some time on it, see what other brands are doing, and then go from there. But yeah, either direct, or if you're using an agency as well, many of our clients have media agencies who then do all of that hard work for you. If you don't, it's very easy direct.
If you need a little bit of advice how to get on TikTok, definitely contact Fast Track because we sort of do that. Question up the back.
Yes. Great
Stand up,
presentation.
Mara. Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you. I wonder if you know what's the average length of a video for hotels? Is it 30 seconds, 1 minute, 10 minutes? Is there such a stat yet?
The short answer is no, and the reason being is that we measure attention rather than time. In saying that, in general, shorter videos perform better. So 15 to 20 seconds. It ultimately depends on what you have to say, is the advice that I would give. If you don't have anything to say for longer than 15, then don't do longer than 15.
Any other questions? Just one more up the front here. Thanks, mate. That's really good. Thank
I was just actually wondering, is there still going to be a ban on TikTok in the United States? And do you think that's going to have an impact on Australian viewers and creators?
So I'm not able to comment on what's happened in the US because I look after the Australian market. All I know is that we don't expect any impact in Australia. Business is growing and it's business as usual. And ultimately, I think it's up to the courts in the US to decide what happens, but we're very confident that, hopefully a resolution will come through. But no impact to business here.
We don't have the question around here.
All right, we have to, just one more quick question. We're starting to run out of time. Thank you.
Sorry, I just wondered about copyright. You had music before on a video. With YouTube, if you do something on YouTube and it can bring on a copyright, you'll get shut down and whatever. Is that the same with TikTok?
Yeah, the same licensing applies. One thing I will say is there's what's called a commercial music library on TikTok. So there's already pre-approved tracks that brands can use within that library. But if you wanted to use another famous song, you would go through the same licensing approach you would with other channels.
Okay. Declan, thank you very much. Please put your hands together for Declan. Thank you. Thanks, mate. That's fantastic. And if you have any questions about how to get on TikTok, please see the team at the Fast Track Digital. We can certainly lead you the best way.